The stars were quiet that night. Admiral Park Do-hyun stood on the bridge of the Hachi, watching the endless darkness through the main window. He had seen many things in his 40 years of life. He had fought in 3 wars. He had watched friends die. He had buried soldiers under alien suns. But the silence of space always made him feel small. The Hachi was the flagship of the Terran 7th Fleet. It was a massive ship, over 2 kilometers long, built from steel and fire and human stubbornness. Around it, 20 other warships moved in perfect formation. Destroyers, carriers, support vessels. All of them crewed by humans. All of them ready for war. But tonight, there was no war. Only patrol duty on the outer edge of known space. Do-hyun took a sip of his coffee. It was cold. He had forgotten about it again. That happened a lot these days. His mind was always somewhere else. Always thinking about the next mission, the next problem, the next crisis. Admiral. A voice broke through his thoughts. He turned to see Lieutenant Commander Yoon Hana walking toward him. She was young for her rank, barely 30, but she had earned her position through skill and hard work. Her job was communications. She listened to the voices of the galaxy and translated them for the fleet. "What is it, Commander?" Do-hyun asked. Hana's face was troubled. She held a datapad in her hands, and her fingers were shaking slightly. That was unusual. Hana was one of the calmest people he knew. "We received a signal, sir. Emergency broadcast. Priority 1. Do-hyun set down his coffee cup. Priority 1 meant someone was dying. "Show me." Hana handed him the datapad. The screen showed a wave pattern, the visual representation of a subspace transmission. It was messy, broken, full of static. Someone had sent this message in a hurry. "Origin?" He asked. "Velith Prime, sir." "The Velith Confederacy." Do-hyun's expression darkened. The Velith were a peaceful species. They looked like large insects with crystalline wings that caught the light in beautiful patterns. Their bodies were fragile, their minds brilliant. They had created some of the most advanced mathematics in the galaxy. But they had no concept of violence. No military. No weapons. The Galactic Council had assigned the Terran 7th Fleet to protect this sector partly because of the Velith. They were too valuable to lose and too gentle to protect themselves. "Play the message." Do-hyun or Hana tapped the pad. A voice filled the bridge, translated into English by the ship's computer. But the translation was strange, incomplete. The Velith language had no words for certain things. "Unknown entities have arrived. We do not understand their purpose. They are taking our cities. Our people are gone. Not dead. Gone. We have no word for what they do. Please, anyone. We are being unmade." The message ended with static. The bridge was silent. Every officer had stopped working to listen. Every face showed the same expression of horror and confusion. "Unmade?" Captain Kwon Sun-ho spoke from the tactical station. He was a solid man, built like a fighter, commander of the destroyer Cheonggrail. "What does that mean?" "I don't know," Hana admitted. "The Velith language is based on mathematics and peace. They have no words for attack, enemy, or war. I had to guess at the translation." Do-hyun stared at the datapad. Something was very wrong. The Velith were not a dramatic people. They did not exaggerate. If they said they were being unmade, they meant exactly that. "How old is this signal?" he asked. 6 hours, sir. It took that long to reach us." 6 hours. In 6 hours, anything could have happened. The Velith could already be gone. "Navigation," Do-hyun called out. "How long to reach Velith Prime at maximum speed?" 18 hours, Admiral. Too long. Far too long. But there was no other choice. "Set course. Maximum speed. All ships." He turned to face his crew. "I want all departments at battle stations. Every weapon loaded. Every fighter pilot ready. The bridge erupted into activity. Officers shouted orders. Screens lit up with tactical data. The entire ship began to hum with energy as the engines powered up to full capacity. Sunho approached Do-Yen. "Admiral, we don't know what we're facing. Should we request backup from command?" "There's no time," Do-Yen said. "We are the backup. That's why they put us here." "But sir, Captain." Do-Hyun's voice was hard. "The Velith have no weapons, no soldiers, no way to fight. If we don't go, no one will. And I will not sit here while an entire civilization is erased." Sunho nodded slowly. He understood. They all did. This was what it meant to be human in a galaxy full of fragile species. This was the burden they carried. Chief Science Officer Baek Jian arrived on the bridge, her uniform still wrinkled from sleep. She was an older woman with gray streaks in her hair and eyes that had seen too much. "I analyzed the signal," she said without greeting. "The energy pattern in the background. I've seen something like it before. In old records. Very old records." "What kind of records?" Do-Hyun asked. "Stories, mostly. Myths from species that died out thousands of years ago. They spoke of shadows that came from the void. Shadows that did not kill, but erased. Made it so you never existed at all. Made it so you never existed at all." A chill ran down Do-Hyun's spine. "Are you telling me we're facing a myth?" "I'm telling you we're facing something that has destroyed civilization so completely that only myths remain." Yen's voice was steady, but her eyes were afraid. "Admiral, whatever did this has done it before. Many times. And no one has ever stopped them." The weight of her words hung in the air. Hannah spoke quietly. "Sir, the Galactic Council has classified Earth as a death world. A planet so dangerous that we should never have survived. But we did. We survived everything our world threw at us. Ice ages, plagues, predators, ourselves. Your point, Commander?" "My point is that maybe that's exactly what the Velith need right now. Not another peaceful species. Not diplomats. They need Deathworlders." She met his eyes. "They need monsters." Do-Hyun felt something shift in his chest. Pride, maybe. Or determination. Or the simple, stubborn refusal to accept defeat that had kept humanity alive through every disaster. "Then let's be monsters," he said. For them. The fleet jumped to hyperspace. 21 ships, 6,000 humans, racing toward an enemy that had never been defeated. Behind them, the stars remained quiet, but ahead, something old and terrible was waiting, and for the first time in its long existence, it would learn what it meant to face a species that refused to die. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace above Velith Prime. For a moment, nobody spoke. Nobody could doubt Admiral Park Do-Yen had seen many terrible things in his career. He had watched planets burn. He had walked through the wreckage of dead cities. But nothing had prepared him for this. 3 ships hung in orbit above the Velith homeworld. But they were not ships in any normal sense. They were alive. Massive organic structures, each one the size of a small moon, covered in pulsing flesh and dark veins. They looked like something from a nightmare. Something that should not exist. Streams of pale light connected the ships to the planet below. Wherever the light touched, the surface was wrong. Not destroyed. Not burning. Just gone. Empty patches of nothing where cities had stood for thousands of years. "Mother of God," Captain Kwon Sunho whispered. Do-Hyun gripped the railing in front of him. His knuckles were white. "Science team, report." Chief Science Officer Baek Jian worked at her console, her fingers moving fast. Her face grew paler with every second. "Admiral, those light beams are not weapons." "Not exactly." They are extractors. They are pulling matter and energy from the surface. But more than that, they are pulling information, memory, identity. Explain that in simple words, Do-hyun said. Ji-yeon looked up. Her eyes were haunted. They are not just killing the Velas, sir. They are unmaking them, erasing every trace that they ever existed. The buildings, the people, even the thoughts and memories. Everything goes into those ships. Why? What do they want? I think... Ji-yeon paused, struggling with the words. I think they eat civilizations. They consume everything a species was and add it to themselves. They are predators. But they don't want meat. They want souls. The bridge was silent. Every human there felt a cold fear settling in their bones. This was not war. This was something far worse. Lieutenant Commander Yoon Hana turned from her station. Admiral, I'm picking up communications from the surface. Velith emergency channels. They're desperate. They don't understand what's happening to them. Put it through. The speakers crackled with static, then cleared. A Velith voice spoke, high and musical, but broken with terror. Why do we forget our names? My children were here. Now I cannot remember their faces. Please, someone, we are fading. We are becoming nothing. The transmission cut off. Do-hyun closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, they were hard. How many Velith are left? Ji-yeon checked her readings. 4 billion, approximately. Down from 12 billion this morning. The rate of consumption is increasing. 8 billion lives. Gone in less than a day. Not dead. Erased. Can we communicate with those ships? Do-hyun asked. Hana tried several frequencies. Nothing responded. The organic vessels ignored all attempts at contact, as if the human fleet was too small to notice. They don't even see us as a threat. Sunho said bitterly. Then we'll make them see us. Do-hyun straightened his uniform. All ships, battle formation. Weapons hot. Prepare to engage. The fleet moved. Destroyers spread out in an attack pattern. The carrier Baiko launched its fighter squadrons. The HFY powered up its main guns. Weapons that could crack a small planet. Sergeant and Taiwu's voice came through the command channel from the ground forces bay. He was a big man with a scarred face and calm eyes. Admiral, my teams are ready. If you can get us to the surface, we can protect the evacuation points. Understood, Sergeant. Stand by for drop. The first volley hit the nearest organic ship. The HFY's main cannon fired a beam of pure energy that could have melted through a mountain. It struck the creature ship's outer membrane and tore a massive hole in the living flesh. And then the ship screamed. It was not a sound that traveled through space. It was something worse. A psychic broadcast that hit every mind in the system. Pure despair. Pure hopelessness. The certainty that nothing mattered, that existence was meaningless, that resistance was foolish. Across the fleet, officers collapsed. Some dropped to their knees, overcome by sudden depression. Others simply stopped moving, staring at nothing, lost in a void of meaningless. But not all of them. Don staggered, gripping the railing. The despair washed over him like a wave of freezing water. For a moment, he felt it. The hopelessness. The urge to give up. Then he remembered. He remembered the camps where he had been born. During the resource wars, he remembered his mother, sick and starving, still smiling at him. He remembered the friends he had lost and the ones he had saved. He remembered every hard day, every impossible choice, every time he had wanted to quit and kept going anyway. Humans did not survive on a death world by giving up. Get up. He roared, all of you. This is nothing. This is just a feeling. We have felt worse. Around the bridge, humans began to rise. They wiped tears from their eyes. They took deep breaths. They remembered who they were. Yunhana was already back at her console, her face wet with tears but her hands steady. The psychic attack is their main weapon, sir. They break the will of their victims. Other species surrender or flee. But we're not other species, Sunho said. He was back on his feet too, his jaw set. No, we are not. Do-hyun turned to face the organic ships. Continue the attack. All ships fire at will. The fleet unleashed everything it had. Missiles streaked through space. Energy beams carved through organic flesh. Fighter pilots dove toward the massive creature ships, firing their weapons into exposed wounds. The hollow ships tried to defend themselves. Tendrils of dark energy lashed out, swatting fighters from the sky. The psychic scream continued, wave after wave of despair. But the humans kept fighting. Lieutenant Shin Minho led his fighter squadron directly into the wound their first shot had created. Inside the creature ship, he found something that would haunt him forever. Floating in the organic fluid were preserved minds. Billions of them. The Velith, who had been consumed. They were still alive in some terrible way. Trapped, screaming silently, aware of what had happened to them. Admiral, Minho reported, his voice shaking. They don't just erase their victims. They keep them, store them, like food for later, like trophies. Do-hyun felt sick. Understood. Get out of there, Lieutenant. On the planet's surface, the first dropships landed. Sergeant M led his soldiers into a Velith city that was half gone. The streets ended in nothing. Buildings stood with walls simply missing, cut off by invisible lines. The Velith who remained were terrified. They did not understand violence. They had no word for what was happening to them. But they understood the humans who came running toward them with weapons raised and voices shouting for them to run. Move! M bellowed. Get to the evacuation zone. We'll cover you. The Velith ran. And behind them, shapes began to form from the shadows. The Hollow had ground forces. They were made from the consumed species. Twisted combinations of different bodies, stitched together into weapons. Fast, strong, wrong in every way. M raised his rifle. Hold the line. The ground war had begun. The Hollow had never known fear. For 1,000 generations, they had moved through the galaxy like a slow tide, consuming everything in their path. Species ran from them. Species surrendered to them. Species begged for mercy that would never come. But no species fought back. Until now. The humans would not stop. They kept coming. Every psychic scream of despair that should have broken their will only made them angrier. Every wave of hopelessness only made them more stubborn. Dr. Choi Yoonji stood in the HFY's medical bay, studying the brain scans of crew members who had been exposed to the psychic attack. She was a xenobiologist, an expert in alien life. But today, she was learning something about human life. Remarkable, she muttered, running the data through her computer again. Admiral Doan found her there between battles. What did you discover, Doctor? Yoonji turned to face him. There were dark circles under her eyes, but they were bright with excitement. The Hollow psychic weapon is designed to create despair. It triggers the parts of the brain that feel hopelessness, meaninglessness, the desire to give up. In most species, this is overwhelming. Their brains cannot process such intense negative emotion. They shut down. But not us? No, sir. Not us. She pulled up a comparison chart. Human brains are different. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every day. Disease, predators, natural disasters. Other humans. Our ancestors faced constant trauma. And to survive, our brains developed resistance. Do-hyun nodded slowly. We're used to suffering. More than that, Admiral. We're used to functioning while suffering. The Hollow's despair is strong. But it's not stronger than watching your child die from plague. It's not stronger than starving through winter. It's not stronger than losing a war and rebuilding anyway. Yunji smiled grimly. We feel the despair. We just don't let it stop us. Because we're too stubborn to die. Exactly, sir. The Hollow have never encountered a species like us. They don't know what to do. In orbit, the battle continued. The organic ships had stopped ignoring the human fleet. Now they were fighting back with everything they had. Captain Quan Sunho commanded the Xiangguang from its bridge, dodging massive tendrils of dark energy that could crush his ship like paper. His voice was hoarse from shouting orders, but he never stopped. Hard to port. Fire all forward batteries. Target that wound in their side. The destroyer spun, its guns blazing. Organic flesh exploded outward. The creature ship shuddered, but it was still alive. Still fighting. Still consuming the planet below. Lieutenant Shin Minho led what remained of his fighter squadron on another attack run. Half his pilots were dead. The others were exhausted, pushed beyond all limits. But they kept flying. Stay on my wing, he ordered. We're going in again. They dove toward the largest of the Hollow ships, the one that seemed to control the others. Its surface was covered with eyes. Millions of them. The preserved gazes of every species it had ever consumed. They watched the human fighters approach with cold, dead stares. Minho fired everything he had. His missiles struck home, tearing through eyes and flesh. The ship screamed again, but the sound felt different now. Less confident. Almost surprised. On the ground, Sergeant Im Tai Wu was fighting the hardest battle of his life. The Hollow ground forces were nightmares made real. Bodies of a dozen different species stitched together. Too many limbs. Too many mouths. They moved fast and hit hard, and they felt no pain. No fear. M had lost 20 soldiers in the first hour. Good men and women, torn apart by creatures that should not exist. But the survivors held the line. They protected the evacuation points where terrified Vela civilians gathered, waiting for transports to carry them to safety. Private Han Soyan was 19 years old. She had joined the Terran military because she wanted to see the stars. She had never expected to die for them. A Hollow creature broke through the defensive line and came straight for her. It had been made from something that might once have been beautiful. Now it was a monster of twisted limbs and hungry mouths. Soyan's rifle jammed. She threw it aside and pulled her combat knife. Come on then, she said. The creature lunged. She rolled under its first strike and slashed at its legs. It fell. She climbed onto its back and drove her knife into what she hoped was its brain. It didn't die. It kept moving, trying to throw her off. So she stabbed it again. And again. And again. When it found her, she was covered in alien blood and shaking with exhaustion. The creature was finally still beneath her. Soyan, he said. You okay? She looked up at him with eyes that had seen too much. It wouldn't stop moving, Sergeant. So I didn't stop either. Good soldier, M said. He helped her stand. Now get back to the line. We're not done yet. They were not done. But they were winning. Hour after hour, the humans pushed back. In space, the organic ships began to retreat, pulling away from the planet. On the ground, the twisted creatures fell back, unable to break through the human defenses. Dr. Unji reported her findings to the Vela scientists who had survived. They were amazed, horrified, but also hopeful for the first time since the attack began. Your species is impossible, one Velith said, its crystalline wings flickering with confusion. You feel the despair. We can sense it. But you ignore it. How? Yunji thought about how to explain. How could you describe human history to a species that had never known war? How could you make them understand what it meant to evolve on a world that tried to kill you from the moment you were born? We practice, she said finally. Every human learns to keep going when everything hurts. It's not that we don't feel pain. We just don't let it win. The Velith was silent for a long moment. Then it said something that Yunji would never forget. We thought the universe was cruel to create death worlds, places of suffering and violence. We pitied the species that lived there. But perhaps we were wrong. Perhaps the universe knew that someday someone would need to fight the Hollow, and only Deathworlders would be strong enough. Yunji had no answer for that. Back on the HFY, Admiral Do-hyun studied the tactical display. The Hollow were pulling back, but they had not left. They were regrouping, preparing for something. They've never faced real resistance before, Lieutenant Commander Yoon Hana said. They don't know how to handle it, but they're learning. So are we, Do-hyun replied. And we learn faster. He looked at the planet below. 4 billion Velith remained. Still alive. Still waiting to be saved. Prepare the next assault, he ordered. We're not leaving until these things are dead. The fleet moved into attack position once more, and somewhere in the darkness, the Hollow felt something they had never felt before: uncertainty. 3 days. For 3 days, the battle had raged across the Velith system. The humans had lost 8 ships, 2,000 soldiers. The Velith had lost another 1 billion people before the extraction beams were finally disrupted. But the Hollow had lost something more important. They had lost their certainty. Admiral Park Do-hyun stood on the bridge of the HFY, staring at the tactical display. He had not slept in 40 hours. His uniform was stained with coffee and sweat. His voice was raw from shouting orders. But his eyes were clear. The central ship, he said. That's the key. Chief Science Officer Big Jian nodded. It's the hive mind. The other 2 ships are extensions of it. Destroy the central vessel, and the others will die. Then, why haven't we destroyed it yet? Because it's protected. Jiang pulled up a detailed scan. See this energy field around it? That's not technology. That's psychic output. The billions of minds it has consumed over the centuries. They're all connected to it, and their collective consciousness creates a shield. Nothing we have can penetrate it. Do-hyun studied the image. The central Hollow ship was different from the others, older, more twisted, covered in scars from battles fought long before humans had learned to walk. It had consumed hundreds of civilizations. All their power, all their knowledge, all their suffering. It had used their minds as armor. There has to be a way, he said. There might be, Jian said slowly. Dr. Choi developed something. A neural disruptor. It's designed to interfere with the connection between the Hollow and its victims. If we can get it inside the central ship, it would free those minds. Break the shield. What happens to the victims? The minds it consumed? Ji-young was quiet for a moment. They're gone, Admiral. They've been absorbed for too long. Breaking the connection won't save them, but it will let them rest. Finally, Do-hyun closed his eyes. Billions of souls, trapped in eternal torment. And the only way to help them was to kill them. It was not a choice any commander should have to make, but he had made harder choices before. How do we deliver this disruptor? He asked. That's the problem. The shield blocks everything. Missiles, energy beams, fighters. The only way through is a small craft moving fast enough to punch through before the shield can react. But whoever pilots it won't be coming back, Do-hyun finished. Lieutenant Commander Yoon Hana stepped forward. Her face was calm. Too calm. I'll do it, Admiral. No. Sir, I'm the best pilot on this ship, and I understand the Hollow better than anyone else. I've been studying their communications, their patterns. I can find a weak point in their shield. I said no. Do-hyun's voice was hard. I will not send you on a suicide mission. With respect, sir, you don't have a choice. Everyone else who could fly this mission is either dead or needed for other duties. I'm the only option." They stared at each other, admiral and officer, commander and friend. Da-Hyun had watched Hana grow from a nervous ensign into one of the finest officers in the fleet. He had been at her promotion ceremony. He had met her family that he could not order her to die. "I volunteer," Hana said quietly. "You don't have to order me. I choose this." Before Do-Yoon could respond, Ensign Kang Ji-ae spoke up from her station. She was the youngest person on the bridge, barely 22, with a brilliant mind for tactics and numbers. Wait, there might be another way. Everyone turned to look at her. Ji-ae pulled up a new display, her fingers flying across the keyboard. The Velith. Their minds work differently from any other species. They process reality through mathematics. Pure abstract thought. What if they could create a shield of their own? A mathematical construct that would protect the shuttle long enough to reach the holoship? Ji-yeon shook her head. The Velith are pacifists. They don't use their mental abilities for anything related to violence. "This isn't violence," Ji-hae said. "It's protection. They wouldn't be attacking anyone. They would be defending Commander Yoon. Isn't that different?" Do-Hyun considered the idea. It was desperate, probably impossible, but they were out of normal options. "Contact the Velith Queen," he ordered. "Ask her if this is possible." The communication took 10 minutes to arrange. The Velith Queen, known by the title Crystalline Harmony, appeared on the main screen. She was beautiful in an alien way, with wings like living glass and eyes that held the depth of stars. But she looked tired, broken. She had watched her people die for 3 days. Do-Hyun explained the plan. Queen was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was like music made sad. "You ask us to use our minds as weapons, to participate in violence. This goes against everything we believe. I'm asking you to protect someone who is trying to save your people," Do-Hyun said. "You wouldn't be hurting anyone. You would be shielding a friend. We have never had friends before. We did not understand the concept." The Queen's wings flickered. "We knew of peaceful species and violent species. We did not know there could be species who use their violence to protect others. That's what humans do. That's what we're doing right now. Yes, I see that now." The Queen turned to look at something off-screen. Thousands of Velith gathered in the ruins of their capital. City, survivors, refugees, all that remained of a civilization that had flourished for 10,000 years. 300 million of us remain capable of the mental connection required, she said. "It will exhaust us. Some will die from the strain. But you have already died for us. How can we do less?" "Your Majesty, we agree," the Queen interrupted. "We will create the shield. Your Commander Yoon will reach the holoship. And when she does, we will finally learn what it means to fight for something." The connection ended. Do-Yoon turned to Hana. She was already moving toward the door, ready to prepare for the mission. "Commander," she stopped. "Come back alive." "That's an order." Hana smiled. It was a real smile, the first he had seen from her in days. "I'll do my best, Admiral. But if I don't, tell my family I was thinking of them. And tell the Velith that it was worth it." She left the bridge. 2 hours later, a small shuttle launched from the HFY. It was armed with a single device, a neural disruptor that would free billions of trapped souls. That would break the hollow shield. That would give humanity a chance to win. Hana flew toward the central ship. Surrounded by fire and death dot, and on the planet below, 300 million Velith closed their eyes and reached out with their minds. A shield of pure mathematics wrapped around the shuttle. Numbers and equations, the language of the universe, became armor. Hana felt it surround her. It was warm. like being held by 300 million friends she had never met. "Velith's shield is active," she reported. "Beginning final approach." The holoship saw her coming. Its defenses lashed out. Energy tendrils, psychic attacks, physical debris from broken ships. The mathematical shield held. Hannah flew on, and the holo, for the first time in its ancient existence, felt something very close to fear. The shuttle broke through the holo's outer membrane like a bullet through flesh. Hannah felt the impact through her entire body, felt the mathematical shield flicker and strain as 300 million Velith minds fought to keep her alive. Inside the holoship, reality was wrong. The walls breathed. The air was thick with whispers. Billions of voices, speaking in languages that have been dead for centuries. The consumed civilizations still aware, still suffering, still hoping for release that had never come. Until now. "I'm inside," Hannah reported into her communicator. "Deploying the disruptor in 30 seconds. On the HFY, Admiral Park Do-yoon gripped his chair so tightly his hands ached. Every screen showed the battle raging around them. The two remaining holoships were fighting desperately, throwing everything they had at the human fleet. They knew what was happening. They knew their master was in danger. "Hold them off," Do-yoon ordered. "Give Commander Yoon the time she needs." Captain Kwon Sunho's Cheon-gryong moved to intercept a massive tendril of dark energy aimed at the carrier Baiko. The destroyer was nearly torn in half by the impact, but it held. Sunho's voice came through the comm, strained but steady. "We'll hold, Admiral. Just make sure she finishes this." On the planet's surface, Sergeant M. Taiwu led the final defense of the last evacuation point. His soldiers were exhausted, wounded, running low on ammunition. But they kept fighting. They had to. Private Han Soyeon stood beside him, her broken arm wrapped in a bloody bandage, her voice hoarse from shouting. She was singing an old Korean folk song her grandmother had taught her. The kind of song you sang when everything was lost and you had nothing left, but your voice. Didn't tell her to stop. The song helped. It reminded them all that they were still human, still alive. Inside the holoship, Hana reached the core. It was a vast chamber filled with light. Not normal light, stolen light. The memories and dreams and hopes of every civilization the Holo had ever consumed. It was beautiful and terrible. It was the largest grave in the history of the universe. At the center of the chamber floated a structure that might once have been a brain. It was massive, twisted, ancient, beyond measure. This was the heart of the Holo, the mind that controlled everything. The hunger that had eaten its way across the stars for 1,000,000 years. It noticed her. A voice filled her head. Not sound. Pure thought. Cold and old and curious. Small thing. Warm thing. "You came so far to die?" Hana pulled the neural disruptor from her pack. Her hands were shaking, but her voice was steady. "I came to set them free. They are mine. They have always been mine. They will always be mine." No. Hana activated the disruptor. "They were never yours. You just kept them prisoner. And prisoners always dream of freedom." She threw the device into the heart of the Holo. For one eternal moment, nothing happened. Then the light changed. The billions of trapped souls felt the connection break. For the first time in centuries, millennia, they remembered who they were. They remembered their names, their homes, their families. They remembered that they had been people, not food. And they remembered that they wanted to rest. The chamber filled with light. Not stolen light. Given light. The grateful release of countless minds finally allowed to die. The Holo screamed. It was not a psychic attack this time. It was simply pain. The creature had never felt pain before. It had only caused it. Now, as its victims were torn away from it, As its power crumbled, it understood what it had done to so many others. Hannah was thrown against the wall by the psychic shockwave. Her shuttle was destroyed. Her communicator was dead. She lay in the organic flesh of the dying hollow, watching its heart collapse in on itself. "That's for all of them," she whispered. "Every single one." Outside, the two remaining hollow ships convulsed. Their movements became erratic, confused. Without the central mind to guide them, they were nothing but organic machines with no purpose. The human fleet did not hesitate. Every ship opened fire at once. Missiles, energy beams, fighter attacks. Everything humanity had left. The hollow ships came apart piece by piece. When it was over, nothing remained but debris. Organic matter that would drift through space forever. A monument to the end of an ancient evil. On the planet's surface, the twisted ground creatures simply stopped moving. They collapsed where they stood, the stolen minds that had animated them finally at peace. Sergeant M lowered his weapon. His soldiers stood around him, too tired to celebrate. They had won. They had actually won. "Sergeant." Soyan's voice was quiet. "Is it over?" "Yeah." M looked up at the sky, where the distant flashes of the space battle had finally gone dark. "It's over." The search for Commander Yoon took 6 hours. Her body was found in the wreckage of the hollow ship, trapped under a collapsed support beam. She was not breathing. Her heart had stopped. Her Choi Yoonji worked on her for 20 minutes before she found a pulse. "She's alive," Yoonji shouted. "Get me a stasis pod, now." They carried Hana back to the HFY like the hero she was. 1 week later, Admiral Do-hyun stood before the Galactic Council. Representatives from 100 species watched him from their seats. Some looked afraid. Some looked grateful. Some looked at him like he was a monster. He didn't care. "The Hollow called us Deathworlders," he said. "They thought that made us monsters. They thought we would be easy to break. But they were wrong." He paused, looking around the chamber. "We did not come from a world of death. We came from a world of survival. Everything on Earth fights to live. Every plant, every animal, every microbe. Our planet tried to kill us every single day, and we survived anyway. That is not cruelty. That is hope." The chamber was silent. The Velith asked for help, and we answered. We will always answer. That is humanity's promise. If you call, we will come. No matter how far, no matter how dangerous. We will stand between you and the darkness, and we will not move. He stepped back from the podium. The Velith Queen rose from her seat. She walked to the center of the chamber on legs that still trembled from exhaustion. 300 million of her people had nearly killed themselves creating the shield that saved Hannah. Thousands had died from the strain, but they had done it willingly. They had learned what it meant to protect someone. "We did not understand humans before," the Queen said. Her voice filled the chamber like music. "We thought violence was always wrong. We thought peace meant doing nothing. But you showed us a different way. You showed us that sometimes the most peaceful thing you can do is fight for those who cannot fight for themselves." She turned to face Do-hyun directly. "In our language, we had no word for what you are to us now. We had to create one." Her wings spread wide, catching the light. "The word is friends, and we will never forget what our friends did for us." The applause started slowly. One species, then another. Soon the entire chamber was filled with the sound of 100 different species, showing appreciation in 100 different ways. Do-hyun did not smile. He was thinking of the soldiers who had died, the ships that had been lost, the civilians who had been erased before they arrived. But he also thought of the 3 billion Velith who remained, who would rebuild, who would remember. It was worth it. It had to be worth it. 1 year later, Commander Yoon Hana walked onto the bridge of the HFY. Her recovery had been long and painful. She would never fly fighters again. The damage to her body was too severe, but she could still serve. "Welcome back, Commander," Admiral Do-hyun said. Hannah saluted. "Good to be back, Admiral." Through the main window, she could see the new ships joining the fleet. Vessels designed by Velith engineers, crewed by humans and Velith working together. The first military force the peaceful species had ever created. They had learned that peace sometimes needed to be protected. On the planet below, Sergeant M was training a new generation of soldiers. Humans and Velith, side by side. Learning to fight together. Learning to trust each other. Private Han Soin, now Sergeant Han, still sang when things got hard. And somewhere in deep space, a new signal began to broadcast. Another species, under attack by another threat. Another cry for help from the endless darkness. Do-hyun looked at his crew. Humans and Velith and a dozen other species who had chosen to stand with the Deathworlders. They looked back at him with steady eyes. "Set course," he said. "Full speed." The HFY jumped to hyperspace, and the galaxy learned something it would never forget. When darkness came, when hope died, when everything seemed lost, there was always one species who would answer the call. The Deathworlders were coming, and they never, ever gave up.